One of the trickier parts of this bunny hop gig is getting press copies. Back in spring, my review requests for Watch Dogs and Valiant Hearts went through just peachy, but for some reason Wolfenstein: The New Order never got back to me. Which surprises me, because I would think Wolfenstein would seem way more suited to this channel than those others. Anyways, every 2 months or so, a lot of games media likes to prop up one game as a must-play instant classic, before forgetting about it a few weeks later. They're usually AAA single-player games that don't have a lot of lasting appeal or coherent design, but just enough of both to generate writing that might be more interesting than the game itself. And I think I remember Wolfenstein taking that slot from Watch Dogs back when they released a week within each other. Wolfenstein: The New Order is a good but not great shooter that struggles to balance both old and new designs. It's a satisfying weekend romp, and it would make for a good sale or rental pickup, but it's probably more interesting to think about than it is to actually play. If you've seen my previous videos, you might know that I like campy stuff. I like things that present themselves as dumb popcorn entertainment, but have a heart of gold and a sharp wit underneath the surface, and that's what Wolfenstein is like. It reminds me a lot of RoboCop. That was a hyper-violent work of cheesy shock schlock that still managed to deliver a tragic, sappy story about how bad it would suck to be a robot cop. Wolfenstein: The New Order is an incredibly cathartic, over-the-top shooter that revels in shocking Nazi imagery while also telling a depressing and kinda scary story about how bad it would suck for Nazis to rule the world. The big stylistic twist here that makes it all work is a surreal contrast between dialogue, characters, and settings. It has a jolly sense of humor, but it doesn't exactly crack jokes. All the laughs come from juxtaposing serious dialogue with silly imagery. Almost every one of our heroes' monologues is the exact gravelly voiced melodramatic seriousness that has become a hated cliché of modern action gaming. But while that gravelly voice is brooding away, something completely bizarre and laughable will probably be taking up the screen space.
Blasco, can you see the light? Wait, turn off the light, turn it off! Yes, sir!
The setup and the setting are absurd, but the dialogue tries its hardest to play it all straight. Take a look at this line, for example. This is how it introduces a cutesy Easter egg minigame.
Dreaming. Strange dreams. The killing never stops. Till I die.
That cracked me up. That humorous juxtaposition between overplayed tragedy and underplayed comedy is what I think makes it all work. Having a sense of humor is key to smoothing up the sharp edge of this game's tone. It softens you up for the hard blows, and it's paced well too. It has quiet time. There are so many moments where your rollicking, clean-cut heroics suddenly dive into dark set pieces that explore the horror and depravity of an almost post-apocalyptic situation. It uses science fiction to amp up that cruelty and horror. It uses all that taboo Nazi imagery to write up villains who aren't just villains because they're Nazis, but because they're actual despicable, cartoonishly evil sadists. The fact that they're Nazis just makes that easier to swallow. It uses careful pacing and quiet moments of characterization to contextualize just how good and evil our heroes and villains are. I really like this section where you're collecting Max's lost toys. I love that. After hours of loud, bombastic action where you're shooting up thousands of retro-futuristic robo-Nazis, you take a break to collect lost toys, for a kind of macabre and tragic character. For those few minutes you have to engage with an environment carefully built to showcase the personality of our characters and also the desperate conditions they're dealing with. Moments like these turn those retro-futuristic robo-Nazis into a more terrifying threat than they probably have any right to be. It is unapologetic, both about its cheesiness and its seriousness. That's how it can smoothly transition from neon-colored laser battles with space Nazis on the moon to grainy flashbacks about why God would ever allow the Holocaust to happen. I've always thought that campy stories are generally a good fit for games because the artificiality of action gameplay is always going to be obvious. The genocidal body count and indestructible hero of any hardcore action game is probably going to look silly, even when the story doesn't want it to. So in the spirit of embracing silliness, Wolfenstein tries to take the gameplay a bit old school. Your default hip-fire accuracy is good enough for you to almost neglect the iron sights button completely. There's this overcharge health system that lets you push push your HP past your max for a short burst of extra security. It encourages you to blast through bad guys fast and tank through damage while you're doing it. You can also inexplicably dual-wield the biggest and heaviest weapons in the game and just hold down the fire buttons and go nuts with it. And one unique luxury it gives you that I don't think I've seen in other games is reload canceling. You can cancel out of a reload animation and continue to fire through magazines that should be lying on the floor. There's little to no consequences for reloading in the middle of a battle. You just blast away. It wants to play silly. It seems to want to evoke the brazen attitude of old school gunplay, but it's not fully committed to it. There are a few contradictions in the mechanics here that keep it from really being an elegantly designed shooter. Your basic movement speed is slow, so you can't make good time while overcharged. You can't quickly move out of cover and zip around the map while under fire, which sucks because enemies reload quickly and they can easily keep you pinned down, which becomes a huge issue on the harder modes. Your slow movement speed tries to force you into doing the stop and pop thing, even when your high health and high damage output seems to encourage more speed and mobility. Even at your highest HP numbers and highest damage outputs, even when you feel like you can take the heat, you still have to play like you have a fragile damage threshold. Another thing that always weirded me out is the character upgrade system. This is a thing that always weirds me out, but Wolfenstein does give us an interesting spin on the usual metered character upgrades. They're unlocked by accomplishing specific in-game feats, like an achievements list, and if you really get into this screen and try to be all you can be, it'll force you to play very strangely. One unlock requires you to get 5 sliding kills, so you have to spend a few minutes sliding into other people's gunfire. For another, you're going to be burning through a lot of precious ammo to kill 3 enemies without releasing the fire button. The stealth ones are really strange. They want you to use the throwing knives a lot, which isn't usually the best option. The silenced pistol has more frequent ammo drops, it doesn't require you to correct your aim for trajectory, and a missed shot can quickly be followed up with another. The throwing knives don't have any of those advantages. It is an inferior stealth tool, but the upgrade system pretends like it's not. Here's one that I just do not understand. Perform 5 stealth kills while overcharged. But the whole point of the overcharge system is to tank through damage during big gunfights. If you're playing smart, you're gonna save that extra health for when you need it, and not burn through it when you're safe, which is what you're gonna be while you're sneaking. There are a lot of weird tasks on this to-do list that just do not feel like the way the game was meant to be played, and you could probably make it through the whole game without them just fine. It is a chore to unlock these.
Stupid way to die.
Also, I guess it's worth mentioning that the tech here is pretty janky. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in id Tech 5. Wolfenstein makes a lot of the same unfortunate trade-offs Rage did. Whereas Rage looked great from a distance and blurry up close, Wolfenstein looks grainy and underprocessed just most of the time, except during cutscenes. But seriously though, those cutscenes are beautiful. They're pre-rendered, but on the PC version they're so sharp and clear I couldn't even tell until looking through the game folders. Every shot is just dense with vibrant, diverse details, and there's some great use of depth of field and cinematography, and then it switches over to gameplay, and suddenly the picture the game is painting becomes a lot less impressive. That's the story with the whole game. It's a lot more interesting to watch, to think about, and to write about than to actually play. There are a lot of games that do the whole stealth FPS thing better, but there aren't a lot of games that can gracefully manage camp, shock, horror, and humor as well as this one does. Seriously, one of the levels has you blasting through a concentration camp. What other game could get away with that? I think the reason this content did not end up generating a lot of controversy is because it shows that the game wasn't going to compromise on the tragic implications of Nazis ruling the world. It could have easily been whitewashed out, but it was not. The fact that it was there showed commitment by the developers to take a silly setting seriously, and that's what hooked me enough to actually care about what was going to happen next. That commitment provided endearing moments of characterization and environmental storytelling that this game could have easily gone without. There are some really clever moments in there, and there are also a lot of unfortunate ones as well. What's sad is that without those moments of clever, quality storytelling, Wolfenstein: The New Order might have been a pretty unremarkable experience. I guess we got lucky. I bet no one was expecting a Wolfenstein game to be this interesting.